Hmm. What's going on, everyone? We are back at it. What are we doing? We are going to update some stuff right now. We're going live. It's casual poetry night. Bring your drinks and bring your poems. I'm reading. I got my drink. We're going. Mm-hmm. All right, let's see what we're gonna do. Oh, nice. Oh. All right, let's see what we're gonna do. Oh, nice. Oh. All right, let's. Nice. Just walking into the wormhole of multiple streams. Okay. Oh, what are we gonna look like? What are we gonna look for tonight? We're gonna look for some poetry. Let's go to Poetry Foundation. And I love me some Poetry Foundation. Let's look up alliteration. We're going with sounds of poetry today for me, if I'm reading. If I'm reading, I'm going to look for things that sound nice, and I like alliteration. I like sound in poetry. I like to use a lot of alliteration, assonance, no onomatopoeia, but we'll be getting there soon, I guess, in my own poetry. So, let's see, what do they have to give us? Pizza place. Let's go with, let's search something else. Let's search sound. Sound and poetry. I wonder if they're going to come up with anything useful. Because we can just do that. Or we can just read some, we can read some poetry. I've got plenty of poetry to read, so we're good to go. I can pick up anything. But also, I guess something important to note is that this Saturday, I've got a special guest coming over, and she's going to be sitting down and being interviewed by me. Her name is Rue Owen. She's a good friend of mine, and she is a musician alongside being a, well, she's just started her own company. We'll have to ask her more about that whenever she gets here as well. So, but she is a musician, and she's a songwriter and singer-songwriter, as it goes. And she will be sitting down with us and going over stuff she writes and her kind of place in the community and how she likes to build community. So, should be a lot of fun. And also, there's another interview coming up on Monday, this coming Monday. I'm going to be talking with two people that run the spoken word poetry over here in Brussels. These ladies are really awesome, and I'll put out more information about that later. So everybody will be able to jump on board and be like, okay, I can come to that. If you can come to that, you can come to that. So let's find some music. Well, not music, but you get me, you know what I'm talking about. Browse poems with consonants. That's what we want. Consonants is just where the sounds match up at the end of the words in the poem. Morning Song by Naomi Shihab Ni, I suppose. For Jenna, Morning Song. The tiny journalist will tell us what she sees, document the moves, the dust, soldiers blocking the road. Yes, she knows how to take a picture with her phone, holds it high like a balloon. Yes, she would prefer to dance and play, would prefer the world to be pink. It is her job to say what she sees, what is happening. From her vantage point, everything is huge, but don't look down on her. She's bigger than you are. If you stomp her garden, each leaf expands its view. Don't hide what you do. She sees you at 2 a.m. adjusting your impenetrable vest. What could she have that you want? Her treasures, thin, shiny buttons her grandmother loved, her cousin, her uncle. There might have been a shirt. The tiny journalist notices action on faraway roads, farther even than the next village. She takes counsel from bugs, so puffs of dust find her first. Could that be a friend? They pretend not to see us. They came at night with weapons. What was our crime? That we liked respect as they do? That we have pride? She stares through a hole in the fence, barricade of words and wire, feels the rising fire. Before anyone strikes a match, she has a better idea. I mean, she controls this with sound really, really well. Don't hide what you do. If you stomp her garden, each leaf expands its view. Don't hide what you do. She sees you at 2 a.m. adjusting your impenetrable vest. Lots of internal rhyme. Lots of play on the sound that she's using. Let's see what else we can find. 15 Years of Paris. Lady in Red Afterward, Bel Canto. Birthday Suits. Let's listen to some onomatopoeia. I want to see that. Let's see if we can find something like this. Something examples. No. They don't look to have any examples of that. That my chaff might fly, my grain lie, sheer and clear, nay, in all that toil, that coil, since seems I kiss the rod, hand rather, my heart low lapped, strength stole joy, would laugh cheer. This is like controlling the language. This is the kind of sound that just stops you, and you're like having to, when you're reading it aloud, it just makes you stop slowly, like pause at so many different points just without kind of punctuation, because you're using that dissonance of why, that my chaff might. So you're making two different like motions with your mouth, and so it's really reforming your mouth to conform to the words, and so that makes you slow down. It makes you read in a way that makes it more thoughtful in a way. So carry on comfort. Let's read this. I like this so far. Carry on comfort. I'll not carry on comfort. Despair, not feast on thee, not untwist, slack they may be, these last strands of man in me, or most weary, cry, I can no more, I can, something, people, some hope, might as well fit, wish day come, not choose not to be, but oh, thou terrible, why wouldst thou rude on me, thy ring world, right foot rock, lay a lion limb against me, scan with darksome devouring eyes my bruised bones, a fan, oh, in turns of tempest, me heaped there, me frantic to avoid thee and flee, why? That my chaff might fly, my grain lie sheer and clear, nay, in all the toil that coils, since seems I kissed the rod, hand rather, my heart low, lapped strength, stole joy, would laugh cheer, whom though the hero whose heaven handled flung me, foot trod me, or me that fought him, oh, which one? Is it each one? That night, that year of now done darkness, I wretch lay wrestling with my God, my God. That's a tongue twister. It's one of those ones that just really makes you work for the poem, work to read it aloud, and that's really nice though. I mean, that's what we're here for. We're here for the sounds and the poetry tonight. So, what can we get out of this? Not, I'll not. So the not, I'll not. Carry on comfort, despair, not feast on thee, not untwist. So the repetitive use of not and that sound. Comfort, not, on. So like internal rhyme as well. I guess the internal rhyme really works to kind of move and give us momentum. And I think that's probably how the rhyme works really well in this. But for me, I think it works really well. Gerard has some really interesting sounds like ring world right foot rock. Ring world right foot rock. Lay a lion limb against me. Scan with darksome, devouring eyes. Also, there's the idea that using multiple syllables and you have hard consonants like darksome and then devouring eyes. So you drop down, so you go from 2 syllables to 4 syllables, back down to 1 syllable, and that slows you down quite a lot. And then you switch back up and you go into alliteration with bruised bones. So it's really, that's a cool one. I like that one a lot. What other things are going? Poems of musicality. Not like that. Let's go back. Let's go back again. Gertrude's Son. Does anybody have any suggestions who we can read? Who are we going to be into tonight? Ezra Pound. Let's see, what else we got? Well, I've got a few poems that I kind of want to read anyway. We could just read it. Not so much for it. Not so much for sound, but for poetry. We could just read it for the quality of the poems. Whoa. Teenage Riot. I love this poem. This is a really nice poem. All of us were boys, only somewhere, or, okay, Teenage Riot by Matthew Dickman, I should probably say that first. All of us were boys, only somewhere taller or already in high school, and almost nothing else mattered but to learn some new trick, to pull off something we saw in an escape video, wind cutting around our bodies when we flew off the lip of a ramp, grabbed the board and twisted into a 180, kicking a leg out and landing it. The only way to run through the neighborhood was to run through it together, flipping off cops and skinheads. I almost don't even remember girls, but a vague sense of the taste of bubblegum and how they smelled so different from us, sitting in some kid's basement drinking his parents' vodka. We grew out our bangs, moved in a pack, jumped in when someone of us got jumped. So when a man we had never seen before came up and started beating on Simon, one of us dropped his skateboard, walked over to the man, like someone walking into a bank, and stabbed him. The man, startled, sat down right there on the asphalt, right in the middle of his new consciousness, kind of looking around. Just brings back memories. I don't know, really strange. Like, it just reminds me of me as a teenager growing up, and that kind of sense that's the world I grew up in, so let's look at an interesting word, like interesting sounds that catch us off here. So, it's a pretty straightforward verse. So what do you say? Like, so the second stanza where he goes, his parents' vodka, we grew out our bangs. So we grew out our bangs and moved in a pack. So the grew out our bangs it starts to slow us down, but it's coming up for the next line as well, which is jumped in when one of us. That's a really interesting kind of pause. And I think really what happened, what it feels like he's doing, is it feels like he's slowing down at the end of this stanza, and in order to give us more impact for the final stanza. And you kind of even get that sense again where you look at the final line of the stanza is just two words, got jumped. And the kind of immediate impact of that. So his parents' vodka, we grew out our bangs, moved in a pack, jumped in when someone of us got jumped. So you've got the slowing down of the words right there. So it kind of brings more power to the final stanza. And let's see, let's move this light really quickly. Now go back. So yeah, it brings power to the final stanza. And so when a man we had never seen before, and he smooths the language out. So when a man we had never seen before came up and started beating on Simon, one of us dropped his skateboard, walked over to the man like someone walking into a bank, and stabbed him. The man, startled, sat down right there on the asphalt, right in the middle of his new consciousness, kind of looking around. So he moves back into like prose that's kind of been broken down into poetry, and it's like it's a very similar kind of fashion to how like Bukowski would drop into like prose and then kind of break his prose down into poetry, and that you get this really smooth flow to the poetry afterwards. So that's cool. I like the way that he used those sounds and slowed it down at the end of the second stanza. The alliteration right here, and grew out our bangs, moved in APAC, slowing down the syllables as well. 4-1 moved this one. So that one's cool. Let's see if he has any more that do some interesting stuff. Minimum Wage is a really good one. My mother, so this is Minimum Wage by Matthew Dickman. My mother and I are on the front porch lighting each other's cigarettes, as if we were on a 10-minute break from our jobs, at being a mother and son, just 10 minutes, to steal a moment of freedom before clocking back in, before putting the aprons back on, the paper hats, washing our hands twice, and then standing behind the counter again, hoping for tips, hoping the customers will be nice, will say some kind of word, the cool front yard before us, and the dogs in the backyard shitting on everything. We are hunched over 2 extras on the set of The Night of the Hunter. I am pulling a second cigarette out of the pack, a swimmer rising from a pool of other swimmers. Soon we will go back inside and sit in the yellow kitchen and drink the rest of the coffee. And what is coming to kill us will pour milk into mine and sugar into hers. So you've got some good rhymes kind of closing out the poem, but it doesn't finish it like it's almost like broken down, like a broken down couplet. So you've got 2 parts right here, which you could read it like he could have had it like inside. So we will go back inside and sit in the yellow kitchen and drink the rest of the coffee. He could have broken this down into one line, and he could say, and what is coming to kill us will pour milk into mine and sugar into hers. But the effect that he gets by saying, soon we will go back inside and sit in the yellow kitchen and drink the rest of the coffee, and what is coming to kill us will pour milk into mine and sugar into hers. So he, in a way, gets this kind of unique power of ending it like a couplet, like a rhymed couplet, and just to give that kind of impact at the end. So if you're reading it aloud, it allows you to kind of sink into it with him. It doesn't have the same impact. The strength of it isn't the same. But it still works really, really well. for for slowing down and kind of ending the poem. And even here, where he says soon, even when he starts that sentence, he goes, "Soon we will go back, drink, milk." So you have instances where he's, ending it on the K, ending it on the consonant, and kind of showing that, slowing the poem down, controlling the poem with the language that he's using. And it's a good effect, to end the poem. It's just those poetic devices that help to taper down or slow down or create movement in the poem where you want movement to be, just because it shows more control over the poem that you're creating. I kind of like just using language that's quite musical anyways, because I just like that kind of aspect of my own poetry. I think it brings it rushes the pace of my poetry, but it also it's just like listening to the musicality of it. It just sounds nice to me. So when I read it aloud, it rolls off the tongue really easily. So that's just the type of stuff that I like to write at the moment. So let's see what else we have here. So a lot of internal rhyme and repetition. So interesting. Let's go and see what else we got from him. Bluebells. Let's look for those. Bluebells by Matthew Dickman. Blue light ringing through the green grass. The bent heads of petals are not praying to anyone or to anyone, anything or to anyone. Only we are standing in a field of them, my son and me holding him. In my arms he stretches out to the very far ends of the earth like a radio signal made of skin and organs, of everything. I was singing a song to him I made up about me dying. Since yesterday he has not been crying as much as screaming, like it was terrifying to wake up. It is terrifying to wake up, and terrifying to sleep, and his feet going blue in the cold spring air in which he is growing, his mother is growing him, with the milk she makes all day, spilling out in blue. The song I am singing to him puts him to sleep, will put me to sleep, will one day burst the drum in my ear like a bell, very much like a voice screaming from far off, though you don't know if it's hurting or hungry or nothing at all. Yeah, no, I'm after the sound. I know it's casual poetry night. Bring your own like I'm here to read poetry, so it's casual and it's kind of I'm just finding stuff right now. Right now I'm reading Bluebells by Matthew Dickman, so it's just casual. And I just wanted to hear about I just wanted to hear sounds in the poetry and see what we were getting out of this, um, getting out of the poetry, really. Or we could just read, which is nice poetry. I like this too. If you have any suggestions, then I will read those as well. If you can put them up. Let's see. A lot of repetition and a lot of use of words over and over again that try and bring impact, more impact to the poetry, and just kind of capture the images that he's trying to convey, which I really like. I like the idea of what he's trying to do here, and kind of give us a picture of what life is like with having a child. So, and kind of the magic behind that. So, all right, fair point, fair point. That's let's see. Who else we have to read? Who else do I want to read? What level? You know, level 988. That works. I'm definitely not there yet, but it's nice to see things and read things and just kind of play on them and learn. Let's look at do you have any suggestions, Octavia? Anybody that you want to hear read, or any poets you like, any poems that you like? There's plenty to be found on Poetry Foundation anyway. There's another one too that I wanted to see. No, don't really. Okay, it's alright. Do you have any prose or any kind of like lyrical essays that you enjoy either? Because really kind of what I want to try and do is just I guess put together a community where we're talking about writing, and we're building on each other's kind of energy and focusing on learning more about writing, and kind of the communities that are around us that we can kind of jump into and get into the writing more. So you can read Clown by Chelsea Minnis. It seems like I'm growing more and more like a clown. First of all, I'm always sad. Secondly, all my knives are made out of rubber. Thirdly, it's like my house is on fire. No, I'm definitely becoming more like a clown. I have a tendency to want to put on clown clothes. As soon as I put on clown clothes, I feel faintly happier. Another sign is that I constantly feel like I'm alone in a dressing room. Most of the time, I feel amused. Anyway, the only good thing about the circus is the tigers. I realized that I could get both legs cut off by the circus train, or get frightened by an elephant, but it's very depressing to sit around in a clown suit and think about death. Sometimes I don't feel happy unless I'm in a clown suit, and I enjoy hitting people on the head with a foam club. I really do. When people see me, they realize that it looks very sophisticated to wear a clown suit and smoke a cigarette. This is how I get all the ladies, because they think I'm very droll. People don't understand how you turn into a clown. You turn into a clown because you feel more and more like putting on a clown suit. When you're around people, you sense a kindliness. It makes you so nervous you can't stay calm, which is why it feels perfectly normal to wear orange pants. Plus, it's very subversive to wear bow ties. You can't imagine how jolly everything is. And the fright wigs. I don't want to be a clown, but I'm sure to be one. My mother was a clown. I don't know. Let's look at that. Why do you think why do you think Chelsea thinks that putting on clown clothes would make them feel happier? Let's see. Where's that? When people see me, they realize that it looks very sophisticated to wear a clown suit and smoke a cigarette. disguise and stuff. Yeah. I have a tendency to want to put on clown clothes. As soon as I put on the clown clothes, I feel faintly happier. Another sign is that I constantly feel like I'm alone in a dressing room. Most of the time I feel amused. Anyway, the only good thing about the circus is the tigers. But it's very depressing to sit around in a clown suit and think about death. I don't know if she has any more on here, but no, just the one. Ooh, drinking. We're drinking tonight. Drinking. Now look here, I feel swell. We've been doing some high-class guzzling. May I ask why the honor of this visit? Are we sleeping or dancing? Lunch is poured. Aren't I some kind of human being, or am I just a dead swan? Baby, why aren't we drunk? Am I swaying? Well, stop playing that crazy xylophone. Are you a man or an iceberg? If you're afraid of me, then go lock yourself in a cage. Don't try to give me any peace and quiet. Now it's time for everyone to get their drink poured. Bring me a fresh leopard. You've completely gone out of your mind. I think it ought to have a very healthy effect on me. You think a kiss from a smooth operator means anything? How about a little drink? Now, that should have been the first thing you said. Someone says they're going to buy you a drink, but they just pour you one. Please don't shout after I've had my daiquiris. I like to curl up on the couch in high heels. I love you, darling, but don't you think it's immaterial? Dynamite couldn't get me out of this chair. I've tapered down to 2 quarts a day now. Isn't it wonderful? My whole outlook on life has changed. Licentious, profane, obscure, and the contrary to good order of community, who wouldn't come to their senses? Yeah. Yeah, it's deeper than the stuff. I mean, that's the thing. Like she's really the author's really going into something, you know, something that's really it's really deep. It's really thoughtful. And that's part of the poetry. It's kind of difficult, and I haven't practiced really trying to pulling apart anything tonight. And tonight we're not pulling anything too deeply apart because we're going casual. But if someone's really happy, can they be no good? Think so. Yeah. Now don't start trembling without me. I demand several pittances. Don't worry, I've known myself forever. One word of praise would cause me to act contrary to my own self-interest. Any lines in here that you like? Are you a man or an iceberg? Bit of a double entendre there. Aren't I some kind of human being, or am I just a dead swan? Baby, why aren't we drunk? Am I swaying? Stop playing that crazy xylophone. This is also a chance for me to just read poetry aloud, so that way we're just practicing reading poetry aloud. No, because it gives me more practice to read aloud and do kind of narration. But I need to be up on doing my stuff out and on stage more often, so it's good to be reading aloud. What do you mean in the way of kings? Yeah. I really like that though. Yeah, it's just there might be something there, or there might not be something there, and it just goes on the the kind of the basis of what are you looking for in the poem. I mean, uh, like for example, like I like to let's look at it. Hmm. Do you guys know Kava Akbar? So his last book, wherever it is in my his last book, I think his only book. He's got Calling a Wolf a Wolf. It's like it talks about addiction, and it delves in a lot of things like addiction and desire and inheritance and faith, and yeah. So he really talks a lot. His is just like confessional poetry, but it's really uh, incredibly clever stuff, and it's more about forfeiting my mystique. If you haven't read Kava, read Kava. Forfeiting My Mystique by Kava Akbar. It is pretty to be sweet and full of pardon, like a flower perfuming the hands that shred it, but all piety leads to a single point, the same paradise where dead lab rats go. If you live small, you'll be resurrected with a whole planet of minor gods simpering in the weeds. I don't know anyone who would kill anyone for me. As boys, my brother and I would play love, me drawing stars on the soles of his feet, him tickling my back. Then we'd play harm, him cataloging my sins to the air, me throwing him into furniture. The algorithms for living have always been delicious and hollow, like a beetle husk in a spider's paw. Hafez said fear is the cheapest room in a house, that we ought to live in better conditions. I would happily trade all my knowing for plusher, carpet, higher ceilings. Some nights I force my brain to dream me Persian by listening to old home movies as I fall asleep. In the mornings I open my eyes and spoil the seance. Am I forfeiting my mystique? All bodies become sicker bodies. This is a kind of object permanence, a curse bent around our scalps resembling grace only at the tattered edges. So it's so unsettling to feel anything but good. I wish I was only as cruel as the first time I noticed I was cruel, waving my tiny shadow over a pond to scare the copper minnows. Rockabye, now I lay me down, etc. The world is what accumulates, the mouth full of meat, the earth full of meat. My grandfather taught his parrot the 99 holy names of God. Al-Mazuli, hold on. Al-Mazul, the humiliator, Al-Gharith, the air. Once, after my grandfather had been dead for a year, I woke from a dream. I was a sultan guzzling flies from a crystal boot With his walking cane deep in my mouth, I kept sucking until I fell back asleep. There were only 2 bones in the throat, and that's if you count the clavicle. This seems unsafe, over-delicate, like I ought to ask for a third, as if anyone living would offer. Corporal friends are spiritual enemies, said Blake, probably gardening in the nude. Today I'm trying to scowl more, mismatch my lingerie. Nobody seems bothered enough. Some saints spent their whole childhoods biting their teachers' hands and sprinkling salt into spiderwebs, only to be redeemed by a fluke shock of grace just before death. May I feather into such a swan soon. The book of things not to touch gets longer every day. On one page the handsome puppy bred only for service. On the next my mother's face. It's not even enough to keep my hands to myself. There's a whole chapter about the parts of me that could get me into trouble. In Farsi we say Jaya Shoma Kali when a beloved is absent from our table, literally. Your place is empty. I don't know why I waste my time with the imprecision of saying anything else, like using a hacksaw to slice the strawberry when I have a razor in my pocket. Next to an extent I am necessary at all. I am necessary like a roadside deer, a thing to drive past, to catch the white of, something to make a person pause, say, look, a deer. Where did we go with that? That was a really long poem. I don't think I've actually read that poem before. But it's good to help get some exercise for reading, anyway. There was a stanza I really liked in here where he talks about cruelty. Where is it? Yeah. To feel anything but good. I wish I was only as cruel as the first time I noticed I was cruel, waving my tiny shadow over a pond to scare the copper minnows. Like, that's childhood. And to kind of have that epiphany of, I'm so much crueler now than I was at that stage, and that's what he kind of measures a base cruelty to. And that's kind of, he goes into childhood a lot in a lot of his poems, and so it's really interesting because I don't really have good access in this poem, like to my childhood in that regard, in terms of bringing up those kind of memories. So it's really cool that he can delve into those kind of memories, especially when things he's talking about are like things like cruelty. That's a lot, yeah. Yeah, no, I honestly believe I did a lot more when I was little. But I don't know when the like I don't know when the first time. I don't know about. Yeah, I don't know when I did the insects back then exactly. I lived in Florida. Insects were a thing, so you just had to kind of like kill insects because they would kill you. And I'm the thing is the way that he elaborates it is really cool though, because it's just like he's talking about that kind of base cruelty, like, to know what, like, the first moment he realized like he was being cruel, or what could be seen by him as cruel. So it's a lot this is a long poem to get into, so it's a lot of stuff to think about, and I don't read different languages like Farsi or very well, so to the extent I am necessary at all, I am necessary like a roadside deer, a thing to drive past, to catch the white of, something to make a person pause, say, look, a deer. So significant, necessary. Yeah, he makes it kind of clear that like his necessity isn't a thing so much, it's just like he's just there. He's just something to be looked at, as it were. Entertainment in a way. Yeah. It's really one of those, and that's the thing. Like that's one of the things that I like about his poetry, is the fact that it's it's like common knowledge. Like the way that he explains it is so poetic but basic in a way that, you know, it's an emotion that everyone else has felt, but written in a way that communicates. He writes it in a way that communicates it incredibly well to everyone else, and but in his own kind of poetic view, without, you know, kind of disrupting the poetics of it. So I mean, that's really the power he holds. He holds that power really, really well, actually. This is a really long poem, so it's harder to. I'm cold, man. Let's get a jumper or something. My Kingdom for a Murmur of Fanfare. I love this poem. Yeah. My Kingdom for a Murmur of Fanfare by Kaveh Akbar. It's common to live properly, to pretend you don't feel heat or grief, wave nightly at Miss Fugu and Mr. Goggles before diving into your nightcap, before reading yourself a bedtime story, or watching your beloved sink to the bottom of a lake and noting his absence in your log. The next day you drop his clothes off at Goodwill like a sack of mail from a warplane, then hobble back to your hovel like a knight moving only in L's. It's comfortable to be alive this way, especially now, but it makes you so vulnerable to shock. You ignore the mortgage and find a falconer's glove in your yard, whole hand still inside. Or you arrive home after a long day to discover your children have grown suddenly hideous and unlovable. What I'm trying to say is, I think it's okay to accelerate around corners, to grunt back at the mailman, and swallow all your laundry quarters. So much of everything is dumb baffle. Water puts out fire. My diseases can become your diseases, and two hounds will fight over a feather because feathers are strange. All I want is to finally take off my cowboy hat and show you my jeweled horns. If we slow dance, I will ask you not to tug on them, but secretly I will want this very much. Yeah. This is kind of fun and clever. The next day you will drop off his clothes. The next day you drop off his clothes at Goodwill like a sack of mail from a warplane, then hobble back to your hovel like a knight moving only in L's. So it's like staggered, like you just kind of like move like with that kind of depression on your shoulders, with that kind of like sadness on your shoulders or whatever. And the way he describes it, like a knight moving only in L's, you know, to represent, you know, that kind of staggeredness through like chess pieces and the way that knights move in chessboards. It is comfortable to be alive this way, especially now, but it makes you so vulnerable to shock. You ignore the mortgage, and you find a falconer's glove in your yard, whole hand still inside. Like, implying that debt, going into massive debt through ignoring your mortgage and finding a falconer's glove in your yard, are like, one is more shock than the other. And yeah. Oh my gosh, it's 9:30. I'm gonna have to go. But thanks for staying, Vision Shot. That was really cool. Thanks for being part of the poetry. And I do have to go, but I will be back on Saturday, and I'll have an awesome guest to be speaking with here with me. And then she's got to travel back out to Germany. But we're going to be talking about her music and some of the work that she did in Afghanistan with her band and helping to get other bands started. But yeah, man, come on back out, give us a follow, and I'll be doing lots more reading of poetry and reading poetry. If you want to give poetry out there to read, or if you want to jump on and, you know, find some poems and bring them out, and or if you want to read your own poetry, we can do that too. I don't have any problems with that. I think that's awesome. It gives people, this is a platform to try and, you know, generate that. So yeah, man, thanks, and come back out. Ciao.